feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Thursday afternoon. It's October 23rd, and coming up on today's show, we are going to have another conversation about the Wolves' season opening win. I'm still out here in Portland and not traveling to LA until Friday, so I thought it would be good to get Britt's thoughts on the Wolves season opener here on the off day. Obviously, it's going to be similar topics to the immediate reaction pod that Kyle and I did at Moda Center last night, but I feel like I've had some time to let the game sort of download into my brain, so I'm looking forward to doing a more traditional pod conversation with Britt here. I've also had some time to cut up some clips from Finch's press conference last night and from video in the locker room. So my hope is that this episode still has standalone intrigue, even if you did already listen to last night's episode with Kyle. So more Wolves Blazers talk with Britt Robson coming up next. Let's go. All right, real Wolves games are back. No more theoretically this or theoretically that. We have real data points, and I'm now joined by Britt Robson from MintPost to cycle through a few of those data points, I guess, that we got from game one. Britt, this is year 36 on the Wolves beat for you. How was your opening night?
Oh, I thought it was a great game. I thought Portland exerted its will, played the way it wanted to play, had the Wolves on their heels most of the game. We have all said at various points that the key to this season is going to be the elevation of Anthony Edwards, whether or not he can emerge and almost through force of will and attention to detail and, steady focus, pull games out that are in the balance. And that's exactly what happened. So I think that for those looking for ratification on Ant, which, it's one game, obviously, and there's a lot of things we're going to be talking about that we do have to remember. It's only one game. But I think the fact that Portland last year presented a very strong matchup for the Wolves and beat them twice in Portland and in that same Rose Arena, back to back, and I did it the same way, going at people, getting physical, going hard in transition. The fact that the Finch, another thing I thought was very revealing is that he broke his bench rotation like over his knee 3 or 4 times, and that really was I think a significant thing. There was no tone setting going on. There was game winning going on, and he's not trying to build right now. He's trying to win every game.
Yeah, I want to hit on all those things throughout the next 45 minutes or so. I think the place to start is with Ant. In a word, I thought it was incredible last night. I was going through and rereading your annual X Factors column that you write, and the first one that you had on there was the maturation of Ant, and you wrote, "This overwhelms all the other factors. Unless Ant makes the hardest leap of all, going from a top 10 player to one of the 2 or 3 best in the league, the Wolves will not take their own difficult step of advancing to the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history." I mean, we talked about that, as you just said, that's kind of underneath the ground of this entire season. And I think, frankly, we weren't expecting it this season, and probably certainly not in the first game. I think we had the expectation that there would at least be a feeling out period for him, adjusting his game a little bit, just sort of elevating to a bigger level. It would have been understandable if there was some adjustment time. And we would have ripped him a little bit if it was inefficient and he took 16 mid-range shots and only made 4 of them, and it came at the cost of the things that he was so great at a season ago. I don't know. One game, man, but he did it. That's what that looked like to me, right? Like, that was a better player than last season. Yeah, that was not a top 10 guy. That was a top 3 guy.
I didn't ever think he wouldn't be better, but I had no idea what it would look like. because there's a lot of aspects to his game, the tightening up of his focus, the attention to detail with his footwork or his shot selection, his involvement with his teammates. What we saw was a guy who exhibited enormous restraint. I mean, his team was down by 6-8 in midway through the fourth quarter and hadn't really led since the first quarter, I think. And Portland seemed like the better team for most of those 3 1/4 quarters of the game. And he bided his time. He stayed with it. There was a play on a breakaway where he had a clear, it was a 2-on-1, but he gave the ball to Shannon, who's a great finisher. It was the right play, but he would have held it for a lot longer, I think. He might have toyed with the idea of taking the shot himself. And then Shannon tried to give it back to him because of the gravity that Wade had, the weight that Ant has among his teammates. And they're going to have to learn, to follow his lead in terms of giving them rope as well, I think. But I found that unselfishness and I found that restraint. Those are the soft power things that are really, really hard. That's what maturation is in many respects. If you're a fantastically skilled player, it's really the judgment of when you wield those skills and how you wield those skills rather than absolutely flexing those skills that become the maturation. And I thought we saw a lot of evidence of that last night. The way he kept involving his teammates, the way he kept staying within the defensive system, and watching his teammates struggle and watching some of the key personnel on this team that he needs to bank on and the Wolves need to bank on struggle mightily. They won the game because he kept his cool, he kept sharing, he kept working. And when it came time to win the game or lose the game, he knew that he was the best option to win that game, the way the way it was playing out. And we saw maybe, you and I talked about this, what'll be his go-to or whatever, and that, I'll tell you that dribble drive left, step back 2 on Kamara was I've seen him make that a lot. And right. If he can have something like that in his bag and then, up fake while on the dribble and push, that's a way to go. Pass out of that. That's one of 2 or 3 go-to moves I hope he hones, but that didn't feel like there was any doubt about that shot when it went up.
Yeah, no, 100%. I want to talk about the mid-range, but I want to talk about that idea of, consistency or bankability throughout the course of the game. And that's what when I was sitting there watching the game, I'm like, what is different? What is this I'm seeing and that is different from, a season ago. And I think it was that there weren't lapses, over the course of the game. And he pretty much consistently delivered. The player he was in the middle of the first quarter was the player he was in the middle of the second quarter, was the player he was in the middle of the third quarter, and then elevated to another level in the fourth. So it's like, okay, that's the difference. And then I was thinking to myself, why? Why is this different? One more year? What might it be? I asked him about it after the game, and this is what Ant said.
To initiate contact and just get to your spot and not let them knock you off.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, probably in the preseason, me working on my ball handling this year, it's kind of like I'm inviting the bump, because now I know I'm not just gonna pick the ball up and look for an outlet pass. I'm gonna keep my dribble and try to find another move or counter. So yeah, I was ready for it, honestly.
And it seemed like you had control of it the whole time. There weren't any of those 3-4 minute windows where maybe you weren't is that a step you feel like you've taken, and what goes into that?
I think it's my shape. Javar D-Hines had me running all summer, just doing all type of conditioning drills, just being prepared. I think that's the main thing. You want to be prepared coming into the season. Like my last 5 years, I tried to take the first 10 games to get in shape, and this year I was like, I'm going to use the summer to get in shape. So I think that was the difference.
I think that makes sense, Britt, right? It's just a different level of physicality, a different level of stamina allows you to be, more consistent. It's like when you haven't gone on a run in a long time and you're like, okay, well, I could still for a period of time run a 7-minute, 8-minute, whatever it might be.
Right.
But you're not going to be able to do that for 5. But when you are in shape, you can hold a pace. I thought Ant held a pace, and obviously a really fast one in that game.
And continues to be a really keen student of what is happening as it happens. Sure. I mean, everybody talks about how Ant gushes over his teammates, but what makes that valuable is what he says is what's accurate. It's an accurate praise. He said last night that Jalen Clark, Terrence Shannon Jr., and Bones Highland won the game for us. And there's a lot of truth in that, that was, I think, a very perceptive thing to say, because those guys were on the floor in these uphill slogs with him and, working side by side with him. And you could tell that he is playing less selfishly, in that I think the windows are open on his vision now. It's not, all right, how am I going to beat my man? It's what's else is going on the floor. And as he said, maybe that increased handle has a lot to do with that, because he doesn't have to concentrate as much on ball security, and he can begin to look around and he can begin to see, what's up. Also, not as much complaining to the refs, a little bit, but not much. There was one pass that was a silly pass that went out of bounds, a silly turnover. These are just the things that are going to happen to every player, but none of that dropout, none of that thing where you're going, okay, well, Ant's deciding to take the next 4 plays on defense off.
Right.
That wasn't happening. So yeah, it was, if you're a Timberwolves fan and you logically believe that as Ant goes, the team goes this year in terms of meaningful progress upwards, then this was a very, very heartening win.
I want to talk about the mid-range and some of the shot selection thing. That was a piece of concern for me. I think he was 5 for 7 on non-paint twos in this game last night, and which it didn't. Going into it, skeptical of effectiveness of the mid-range, stuff like that. I wasn't so much of the mind that he wouldn't be able to have really good mid-range shooting games. I thought it would be, and probably still do, think there'll be variance to it, obviously to some degree. But my concern was about shift in overall shot mix. Right, two seasons ago, Ant shot 30% of his shots at the rim, about 40% of his shots from mid-range, 30% of his shots from 3. It was actually 31, 38, 31. And that's important because I'll get to that in a second. What changed last season, he shot fewer shots at the rim and a lot more shots from 3 and fewer shots from mid-range. His shot mix last night was 31% at the rim, 38% from mid-range, 31% from 3. It was his exact same shot mix as 2 seasons ago, before he, had evolved to taking more threes and fewer mid-ranges a season ago. And I don't think we thought 2 seasons ago that was an inappropriate shot mix. I think last year we were just like, okay, cool, a few less mid-range shots, a handful more threes, even better. But what we saw is going back to the 2 years ago version, but doing it at a greater efficiency. And I don't think
greater volume. Which was
a greater overall
28
volume.
shots, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting that it was the exact same splits as 2 seasons ago, which fits to me in the realm of like absolutely reasonable amount. And I would have said that even if it was, I don't know if I would have said it exactly. I probably would have been a little harsh if he was like 2 for 9 for mid-range, but it's not an outlandish, unseen incorporation of the mid-range for him. And then it looks better. It looks more repeatable. That you talk about obviously the kill shot he had at the end, that didn't look like a tough mid-range, like a really tough mid-range shot. It looked like a mid-range shot that he could take and make. And I think that to me is the crucial aspect of the mid-range. Is there was many times I tweeted out last season, that was a stupid shot, or that was unwise, or Ant's shot selection needs to be tightened up, or, we didn't see any of those, twisting through the lane,
try to bank a 17-footer, with scale of difficulty of a figure skater. We saw a guy who was very, very much under control. Yeah, there were definitely times when he realized the pressure was on because his teammates were having trouble getting good shots a lot of the night. I mean, in the beginning they missed some, but in general, I thought Portland's defense, beginning with the backcourt pressure and then kind of making the half-court game rushed in many cases, I think really affected people. And I also think, Rudy and DDV and Mike Conley and some other folks struggled at the offensive end. So there was a lot of pressure on Ant. And Julius Randle, I also thought 17% usage rate. I thought I was worried, like you worry about things. I was worried about Randle getting, into the high 20s or low 30s in usage, because I think Ant is going to need that kind of space and time to figure out how to be this new mature Ant. He's going to need to not cede his decisions if he gives the ball away,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that Shannon and Clark were immediately repost or reperimeter, you take it, buddy, and I think he needs that to some extent.
He filled like in the space that was required in this game is the other way I would put it.
That's
Dante's not playing well.
It saves a lot of words.
Right. And so Dante wasn't playing well. Nas didn't play well.
Right.
You need more offense. So naturally you're going to look to Ant and Julius. Those are going to be your primary places to do it. I don't think Julius played poorly in that game, but it was not a game where he had advantages where you could just kind of play through him like they could in the Lakers series, like they could in the Warriors series, right? When he had an advantage situation every time. And so I think when you start playing through Julius more and more, when he doesn't have an advantage situation that forces the opponent to bring a second defender, that's when you start getting diminishing returns of Julius Randle. And I don't think they got to the point of getting diminishing returns from Julius Randle because Ant was able to fill up that space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 6 assists and no turnovers for Julius Randle.
Sure. And
so
playmaking the whole time.
But the whole point is that he didn't have to you've seen him sometimes. I mean, especially if you remember the weak pass at 2 millisecond before his feet hit the ground while in the air, he gets rid of a weak pass to somebody. He had space and time to do what he wanted to do when the gravity was on Ant, and I think that really helped. I just feel like it was not their best game by any stretch. Portland is a potent, frisky team. They're not going to, if they even make the play-in, it will be a mild surprise. I think they're, potentially be that they're one of the 11 teams or so I think have legitimate, play-in or postseason aspirations, but they're on the bubble of that. But their style of play has given this team fits in the past, and given the fact that there wasn't a serviceable point guard last night, it really the Wolves were really behind the 8 ball for quite a while.
Well, it's the same style of play as the Thunder. I mean, so it's so relevant.
And Dallas the year before in the finals, right?
Right. Like it's just this hellish perimeter defense, and picking up full in that sort of way, and which can exploit the Wolves' lack of handlers. It was a great first opponent to have. It was a great test for all of the things we complained about with this team after the Thunder series. How are they going to address it? I don't think they found additional answers for how to address it. They found Ant. More Ant is the answer against those type of teams. We'll close out the Ant thing. I just want to play Finch's comments on Ant afterwards as well.
He's been incredibly focused all preseason. It was special tonight. It really was. It was really had to do a lot of the handling too, and was able to obviously hit big shot after big shot down the stretch.
He was effusive in his praise of Ant after the game, but it was I think that's what he's doing is he's talking about filling the space, of We didn't have a handler there. Ant stepped up into it. We needed more scoring. Obviously, Ant stepped into it, but I think this is what Finch knows that this team needs to get to a high level, because there are limitations for how much more offense. So Rudy Gobert or Julius Randle or Jaden McDaniels or Dante DiVincenzo can give them there. But it looks like everything we heard about his summer, man, from the getting in shape to the focus,
Right.
which sounds like the cliche things you normally hear, but I'm noticing his body composition is different.
Mhm.
I'm noticing his focus level on the floor is different. So I don't think those are bullshit lines that, we're
Right.
getting from them. At least, again, one game. Let's see what it looks like Tuesday in
Right.
January. But yeah, I don't
there's
know.
going to be, obviously, the best players have bad games, and this is a 1-game sample size, but it was, for reasons we've just said, good opponent to test things that were vulnerabilities. The vulnerabilities did not look nearly as vulnerable. Ant in particular was erasing some of those vulnerabilities. And again, it's the soft power. Finch called it the polishing of his game, but it really is the awareness of how to be. He's always been a great leader in the locker room, but it's the awareness of how to be a leader, not even just on the court, but during the play-by-play.
Yeah.
That is what it is. And so, that's what we're seeing, or that's what we saw anyway last night, and hope to see 81 more times.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with Britt. We'll move over to the point guard position. Today's show is brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company, and we know there are a chunk of you out there who are looking to get a home improvement project done this fall before the winter comes. Act now. Go to yourhomeimprovementco.com and schedule your home improvement project. They do have the buy 2 windows, get 2 windows free deal with us, and they are offering 30% off bathroom renovations. If you do need to get a project done, you got to work with somebody. We've worked with Your Home Improvement Company for a long time, and whatever the project is, Your Home Improvement Company offers great financing deals that require 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2026, and everything is done by certified professionals. We would love it if you contacted Your Home Improvement Company by calling 866-777-YHIC or by going to yourhomeimprovementco.com. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. And if you're listening to this on Friday morning, head over to prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app and take a look at where each Wolves player's Prize Picks is set at. If you believe Ant is headed for another high-scoring game in LA, you could take the more than on his point total. If you're concerned about Dante DiVincenzo or Naz Reid and how they performed in the opener, and you think that might continue as a trend, you can take less than on their point, rebound, assist total, whatever on there. And if you don't need any more extra motivation for watching the Wolves, that's fine. Try it out for a different NBA game. You're just turning on League Pass. You're turning on a national TV game. It's really easy to just play for $5. It's not going to make or break the bank or anything like that, but it gives you a little extra something going on there. And if you've been watching the team and you feel like you're seeing a trend, it's a way to make a lineup around that. There's always something going on over at Prize Picks. As a reminder, to put together a lineup at Prize Picks, all you need to do is put 2 or more picks in your account, or picks in your lineup to win. And if you don't have a Prize Picks account, all you have to do to sign up is use the promo code DANE. When you sign up, you'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com, Prize Picks app. Use promo code DANE when you create your account. All right, back with Britt Robson. Britt, obviously the biggest storyline before the game was the shift of the starting lineup that we did not necessarily foresee, that Dante DiVincenzo was going to be the opening night starter at the point guard position. I want to talk about that. I think that also ties into the turnover issue that the Wolves really had last night. I think it was 19 turnovers. They turned it over on 18.6% of their possessions. And I think it relates to the Rob Dillingham thing, who did not play in this game. So let's focus on the point guard position a little bit. Just kind of walk me through what your thoughts were when you did know DiVincenzo was going to be the starter, and kind of I did the same thing. It was like, okay, what are the ripple effects of this? Is what I found myself thinking about yesterday afternoon. Where was it before the game started? Because obviously the game was so weird that DiVincenzo and Conley were both so bad in that game that they both got benched, which is just kind of a hilarious Finch thing of like make a bold starting lineup change only to bench both of them and play Bones Highland in the fourth quarter. It's crazy. But before the game, what were you thinking about?
Well, I was thinking that this is a 360 or 180, whatever you want to call it, a complete turnaround from his stated position to me in that preseason interview to the way the rotations work for almost the entire preseason.
So he did say it in the interview with you, right? He said Mike was going to start. I was trying to figure out, like, was there a time?
I said, will Dante be more of a point guard or an off guard this year? He said, he will be an off guard. He literally... Yeah, okay. I'm going to use him. He's not going to. I mean, it literally was the idea of Dante DiVincenzo playing the point was refuted in that interview. And when I asked DiVincenzo about it in media day or whatever it was, he said, look, I'll play whatever we want to play. It doesn't sound like he wants me to play the point. I'll play the two, whatever. But there was never an indication. And so then I went to, well, first of all, I saw what you said made sense. You talked about rotation minutes, and also it was something that Finch had mentioned for me when I was talking about Mike's minutes with him, about how hard it is to play somebody only playing 24 minutes to start them. He said it was easier to work that in 36 than in 48. And obviously what that meant was no first quarter or whatever. But so then I began to think, okay. And then he said pregame, it'll put the ball in Mike's hands more often with the second unit. And so then I'm thinking, Mike Conley is not an aggressive individual, but he has been pretty strong in his sarcasm about the idea that, hey, don't mind me. I'm just an 18, 19-year veteran point guard who knows how to handle a half-court offense better than anybody in the NBA practically. And I'm going to be bouncing around every now and then, maybe in transition if you give it to me. I promise I won't shoot. I'll give it to everybody who needs it. I mean, he's a smart guy, and he was basically saying, what the fuck? What am I supposed to do here? And so I thought, all right, Finch acknowledges that he's on the court with Ant and Randall, and if he's in the second unit and he brings Rudy in late, it was Rudy one of the first off, it makes a lot of sense. Mike and Rudy against the second unit, win-win.
Right.
Flexibility in that. But then I see, first of all, it was an abrupt turnaround with no real evidence that it was going to happen until it was announced to, I think, Mark Haynes or somebody. I mean, it was kind of leaked before it happened. And we know what kind of pressure defense Portland plays. And as the game unfolded, I thought to myself, this is bad news about the future of Mike Conley, because they yanked him so that pressure, those big defenders who pick you up 50, 94 feet, and quick guys too, like Wesley, but all the Kamara and Avdia, all these people can, rock you. And
can I interject one thing right there?
Yeah, sure.
Just because Finch did talk about this in the postgame when we asked about Bones playing and like why it was Bones. Mm-hmm. What Finch said was having size on defense, like Bones being bigger than Rob, being bigger than Mike, and being able to handle as well, which I just thought was an interesting sort of thing. It wasn't just like, I think Bones is going to be able to break the pressure necessarily better than Dante. I mean, he probably could have, given how Mike and Dante were not breaking the pressure in that game. I just thought that was an interesting piece. And I think it's noteworthy given how big that Portland does play, how big their personnel is. We saw that with Mike against Houston and stuff like that last year, where the team is just overwhelming in size, that even if it isn't on the offensive side, they can make adjustments to take Mike out, to not roll with Mike because he's 6 inches shorter than the shortest player on the floor,
Right, exactly.
So I just want to throw that in as a factor.
Sure.
Obviously, the primary factor for reason that Dante and Mike were not playing in the fourth quarter was because they were turning it over like crazy when they were playing.
And that's, I think the point I'm making here is respect for Mike Conley and his phenomenal legacy is what is making these perceptions of what happened distilled and distorted. I mean, let's just say that the guy didn't have a fantastic preseason, was going up against a really rugged team, is 38 years old, and they decided they needed to go in another direction. Not only for that game, the way it was presented was this is a lineup change and a 180 degree or three, a turnaround in what they think after a lot of preaching about how establishing habits early in the season and getting in a groove and hitting the ground running was so important. This is a seismic shift in how you're going to address one of the weaknesses everybody knows about on this team.
Mm-hmm.
And then DiVincenzo goes out there and gets totally just trashed by really rigged defense. It just seems like Conley, DDV, boom, boom. I mean, DiVincenzo, you said they had 18 turnovers or 19. Dante had 6 of them.
Right. Right away, 5. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was an attempt. The lineup shift was an attempt. In retrospect, you just have to go with what is most obvious. An attempt to avoid getting crushed in a vulnerable position. It was successful, and it enabled that vulnerability to become more blatant and more of an issue. And they're in trouble. We don't want to overreact on one game. It was exactly the kind of opponent that can make that embarrassing thing happen. And there will be times, I think, when Mike Conley plays well, and there will definitely be times when DDV plays well. But you look at that and you say to yourself, if this team is thinking about championships, then they're thinking about the postseason, and they're thinking about postseason against elite teams. And so you want to be aware of that. You want to have things in place to take care of that. And so
right now, the elite teams in the playoffs, obviously the Oklahoma Cities, the Houstons, and stuff like that, are going to present this same problem that Portland did, because they're as good, if not better, at exactly what Portland was doing there. I am curious to see how much it plays out being relevant in the regular season, because you even think about tomorrow's game against the Lakers.
Right.
You go from being guarded by Drew Holiday to Austin Reeves and Gabe Vincent, maybe. That's a very different thing. Yeah, right. Well, whatever. I mean, not Drew Holiday or Blake Wesley or anything like that. Right. So we'll see how relevant it is, but it is good to keep in the back of our minds of like, yeah, this is probably what it'll look like against the Thunder. It's probably what it looked like against Houston, or they would be as tenacious and problematic as Portland was there. But I want to go back to the decision, just because I was out here in Portland. Obviously, this is the topic of conversation around the stadium before the game, and as it was presented to me, it was a very late in the game decision made, in the last couple of days. I mean, obviously they got their whiteboard and they got a million different things. It'd been a consideration, but it's true that this decision was made in the last 48 hours or something like that. Ultimately, somebody told me DiVincenzo didn't even know about it. He found out by the Chris Haynes tweet that it was happening. I'm sure he had some sort of indication. Right. I didn't talk to Dante about this. The word of mouth. We didn't interview Dante after the game, but I think that's relevant to this whole thing, because, and I'm glad you reminded me of the Finch quote from your piece with him from 4 weeks ago. It's not even that, not even that long ago, where he talked about Mike, and he talked about him being off ball. So I think it's fair to say it's something that came together over the course of the preseason, and a decision they ultimately made based on a lot of different factors. That's what Finch said before the game. It was a lot of different factors. He made sure to be like, it's not an indictment of Mike Conley's play, but he did say it helps from the rotation standpoint. And what do we see with the rotation? It was, how much easier was it to just kind of flow and get into different lineup combinations when you're not, pot committed to 30 minutes for Naz Reid and DiVincenzo both off the bench? That just limits your flexibility from a rotation standpoint. So I don't know. Something to monitor, obviously. Going
I don't think we can just glide by the fact this was a change made on the basis of weakness. It was not a change made on the basis of strength. And that a change made on the basis of weakness that is abrupt and last minute in the preseason, just before your first game of the season, and the switch that happened both ratified your concern and did not address your concern in any way, shape, or form, is a bad look. And, thank God Anthony Edwards was who he was, and Julius Randle had a good game, and the expanded bench, the advantage of that. If you want to be Mr. Super Silver Lining, you could say Finch said Ant handled the ball, and maybe the secret kind of plot is that Ant is going to be the point guard on this team. Maybe the fact that you can get guys like Clark and Shannon and Bones Highland in the game without a lot of that's a huge move. No, everything was fluid, so anything was okay. So those can be silver linings, but at its root, if you don't know who your point guard is going to be from game to game, and you're a back-to-back conference finalist, that's not good. When you see it, Dallas has it right now with Kyrie. Nobody knows, and D'Lo didn't even start last night. A couple of other teams. I was about to say Houston with Van Vliet out. Amen as the point, probably not really. There are some real point guard issues around the league. But the Wolves are among those teams right now.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing to track around the league and then look at through a Wolves lens, because if Mike Conley is just a bench guy and Dante DiVincenzo is the starter the rest of the way, and the Wolves don't end up playing a traditional point guard in their starting lineup, they're not going to be alone in that. And it'll just be an interesting thing to sort of track of how that's working for other teams in the league doing a similar thing. But specific to the turnovers, how did you feel that this turnover display compared to last season?
I thought it was Ant and Julius, just as in the previous seasons. Ant and Cat were the biggest offenders last season. And that in this case, it was ball handling and specifically, a lot of it, obviously, if you cover somebody 94 feet, the idea is to take the ball away at least some of the time before they get across half court. So that was different, but predictable given the matchups. But I do think that I think it is a level of worry anyway. The idea of Julius and Ant, I thought both had really good, clean games in terms of ball handling and decision making, but there wasn't any margin of error because that was all taken up by, frankly, shoddy, court floormanship by the point guard position, and which leads into Rob, right?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say that, obviously that stood out a ton watching the game, that they were turning it over and kind of turning it over at a ridiculous clip. But I did go look at the numbers this morning, and they turned it over on 18.6% of their possessions. They did that 19 times last season, 19 games. So 1 in every 4 games last season, they turned it over this much.
And it was an acknowledged problem, though. That's the thing.
Right. I'm not saying to take it away from it being an acknowledged problem. Sure. I'm just not sure it's a surprise. It's disappointing without being a surprise. They turned it over a shit ton last year.
Yeah, I guess, but I think you were absolutely right in saying how was it happening, and what Mike Conley always brought to the bank was ball security. 4-1, 5-1, 3.5-1 assist to turnover ratio. That and 40% from three. Whatever else Mike Conley was going to do, he was going to take care of the ball at about a 4-1 assist to turnover ratio and hit 40% of his threes. Those are two really, really good skills. If one of those goes away, that's, there are catch and shoot 40% shooters, I don't know. I mean, that don't have to be playing next to a big center and have everybody on their pins and needles worried about switches of Mike Conley down in the low block. If he can't be his 4-1 assist to turnover ratio guy and get the ball across and handle pressure and be unruffled, he was ruffled a lot last night, even when he didn't turn the ball over. He was pressured and he felt the pressure. It was a concerning performance.
Yeah,
made the more concerning by the circumstances that came into the game. I mean, again, on the one hand, I want to say one game, one sample size, bad opponent, perfect circumstances for a meltdown. On the other hand, not good. This isn't like, it isn't a situation that's going to get better. It feels like, you know what I mean? I mean, it isn't like Mike Conley's going to be better in February than he is now, theoretically.
I do think I want to just give it a little bit of time.
I agree.
Before like 5-alarm fire, because also like, what do you even do when it's a 5-alarm fire? Does that mean
3 alarms?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It obviously was a crazy thing. It was disappointing in that there is the context of it being Portland and some other things. I think there's a world where tomorrow Dante DiVincenzo and Mike Conley play really well against the Lakers.
Absolutely.
Today's show is brought to you by Skims. You know about Skims. They have an expansive lineup in women's clothing, but they really have expanded their product to the men's side of things, specifically men's underwear. And I've said this before, but my favorite thing about Skims is that it's a type of boxer brief that both works for going to the gym and just everyday life. I have the stretch 5-inch boxer briefs, and they work functionally just like compression shorts I would wear back in the day playing basketball or for running, but they are significantly more comfortable. I would never have worn compression shorts just around the house at home. And that is what's unique about these Skims ones. You can wear one pair to the gym and another pair afterwards at home because they are built for both. Like I said, I have the stretch 5-inch boxer briefs, and those are my personal favorite, but they also have cotton briefs amongst other styles. And I think you should try and find a pair that works for you. Be more comfortable. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores and let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Today's show is brought to you by Factor. And when fall comes around in our household, we start doing Factor because with a busier routine in the fall and going to games a lot of nights, finding time to cook can be tough. And that's why I love Factor. Their chef-prepped, dietitian-approved meals make it easy to stay on track and enjoy something comforting and delicious no matter how hectic the season gets. Factor has more variety and more meals than they ever have before. You can choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. From more choices to better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. And you can feel the difference no matter your routine. I really do use this myself, and I think you should too. Eat smart at factormeals.com/DaneMoore50 off and use code DaneMoore50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code DaneMoore50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. You can find that URL and code in the show notes. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Yeah. And then the last thing, just we talked so much about the Dillingham thing in training camp in the preseason through the lens of, how do you play him? Given that ninth rotation spot, does it have to come at the cost of Jalen Clark minutes, Terrence Shannon Jr. minutes, all those sort of things? We've done that a lot. What we don't talk about often that I think is somewhat relevant to bring up now, given that he was DMP'd in opening night of his sophomore season, is we got to talk about the asset a little bit.
Mhm.
And as much as we've praised this front office up and down for the Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker trade, at the Gobert trade, and what that's delivered right now in this moment, which is, it has been a full year and we're into year 2.
Right.
Trading a unprotected first round pick and in 2031 and a 2030 pick swap to San Antonio for Rob Dillingham is not aging in a way that looks like good asset management. Still 20 years old, all of those sort of things, but I don't talk about this very often, but I think it is time to bring that up, that he could not be an answer at all, was not an answer that they went to at all in a game where they needed handling. They needed somebody to break the pressure. And even once Conley and DiVincenzo were stapled to the bench, he still wasn't the guy that they went to. They went to Bones Highland there, who's taller and longer, I guess, but like not a defensive stopper, right? If that's what a big part of Finch's rationale is. So we need to note that. We need to remember that that is the opportunity cost of Rob Dillingham from a asset standpoint with this team.
We often talk about players who make loud mistakes and quiet good things, or vice
Rudy.
versa. Yeah. Or, and vice versa too, Rob Dillingham makes loud good things and loud mistakes. That's why he's polarizing. He can look excellent 1 minute and awful the next. Not only physically in terms of his skill set, but mentally in his decision making, physically in terms of this time he's simply not big enough. He's not, whatever. He's got some NBA skills. I think he's a long ways away. The inevitable response to that is, okay, how is he going to get better? And then you have to go to, well, the organization has developed people without putting them on the court and done a decent job of it. Terrence Shannon and Jalen Clark being examples of that. I firmly believe that if Chris Finch thought that Dillingham was the answer, right. He knows he and Tim Connolly are like this, they are tight. And I do think that he knows that this doesn't make Tim Connolly look good.
I commend them for doing this then, because if they know Rob Dillingham,
that's the thing. But that's the thing. There are a lot of people out there who, if I truly had the opinion on Rob Dillingham, that people who really believe in his ability to positively affect his team now, and a lot of people do, who am I to say? Neither one of us really going to show. My instincts are that he's not ready, but I haven't had that proven because he hasn't had the opportunity. And so they haven't been proven wrong because he hasn't had the opportunity. Finch will take the heat for it. Connolly will take the heat for it, for drafting him in the first place and expending the treasury he expended. And the organization will de facto own it one way or the other. And I would just say that most of the time, when the organization is owning something that doesn't seem popular, it turns out. So
yeah, right. No, absolutely.
So there you go. But all legitimate. To see Rob Dillingham not play at a time when this team was getting absolutely whooped at the point guard position was a damning. Conley was damning. DDV was damning. Dillingham sitting was damning for whoever you want to blame there. And Bones Highland, of all people, aside from him, there seemed like a play where he was trying to tell Jalen Clark where to play on defense that I thought, oh, Jesus, veteranitis here. But for the most part, I thought he played well, and he knew what was on the table, which I give him credit for. And he's had a surprisingly, I mean, he's emerged as somebody on the outside rail trying to place a show here at the end.
Yeah. No, I'm with all that. The context is important here too, that they went to the conference finals. You know,
the pressure
for 2 years, and that just, they have a onus on winning, right? And they're playing. It seemed that they played not just who was in the rotation, but the amount of minutes. Nobody was owed anything. Naz Reid played under 20 minutes. Dante DiVincenzo started, and I think just played a hair over 20 minutes. That's what this team is doing now, is prioritizing winning right now, because you can't, their belief, as I understand it, is you have to in the West, because,
and I find that refreshing and accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to flexibility in that rotation and playing the guys you need to play.
And just when I have talked about this in the past, I think this is also a very relevant thing to the Rob Dillingham piece, is they drafted him in June of 2024, right after, after the losing to Dallas in the conference finals. And they have a need for that archetype of player. The roster on June 22nd or whatever it was, 2024, had a need for Rob Dillingham at that time. They were above the second apron. So their only way to add a piece to the roster was with a minimum contract, unless they brought in rookies. And so it was theoretically a loophole in this second apron thing to be like, well, we can get better. Our only way to get a better than a minimum player is to draft someone. Okay, let's trade a future pick to go draft somebody, because Rob Dillingham is going to be greater than minimum player X.
Right.
Then 3 months later, they trade Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, two players who give that team some of what they were missing, that archetype that you were talking about. I know Julius Randle is different than Rob Dillingham, but in ways there's a similarity in just the ability to be a guy to break it down.
If Julius Randle was not so highly regarded by Chris Finch as a playmaker, Finch believed at the beginning of the season. My first question to him on media day was, Conley, Julius, and Ant led your team in assists last year. Do you expect that to change? And he said no.
Right.
I mean, there you go. He thinks he can do this with a power forward, a combo guard, and a 38-year-old point guard. He thinks that is the playmaking troika that is going to be sufficient, because let's face it, they are an ISO-heavy team, and they are a team that doesn't really get up and go. He hasn't talked about, great ball movement, moving without the ball. Remember the catechism of the three things you do? That doesn't get said anymore, because it doesn't fit what Ant and Randall do.
Let's close out, talk about the defense a little bit, and there's different elements to it, but the sexiest piece from the Wolves defense on opening night was Jalen Clark. Here's Anthony Edwards on Jalen Clark.
Jalen Clark, man, he's incredible. On the ball, in the gaps, playing the passing lanes, just everything he does. It elevates the team on the defensive end, and we just try to follow that type of energy.
This was something we talked about in the preseason too, of, is this team going to be able to have one of those defenses that you really feel if Jalen Clark isn't out there? Jason and I did a whole pod about this, like, how do you even have defense be an identity, the identity you're talking about needing, if Jalen Clark is out of your rotation? And when I was of the mind that Rob Dillingham was just based on draft pick merit going to be in the rotation, it seemed like the cost of that was going to be Jalen Clark to some extent. But that is not what they ended up prioritizing in the game. They prioritized Jalen Clark, and he did all of those things to help set the identity of what the Wolves defense was on opening night.
He is a player. This is going to be like the 471st version of what I always say about him, but he doesn't do things wrong, and the things he does right are so integrated into the team that the team is doing things right. I looked up the advanced stats that you get this year. He was 10th on the team in touches last night. He had 17 touches. He made 10 passes on those 17 touches and had 3 assists. That was third. He was 10th on the team in touches. He was third on the team in assists. Did you notice it that much? No. I mean, you know,
it wasn't the opposite.
That he had 3 assists, and as he was battling on the offensive glass like a power forward. Every now and then you'd see him like mixed in, like, you know, a birch tree among 2 oaks or something, you know, working his way in, trying to, you know, this willowy guy, you know. And so, and then of course the obvious things, the steals, you know, it was so funny to see, like, Portland came out and just started ramrodding through people, and Finch just threw Jalen Clark in the game. And what do you know? The other side can do it too, you know. And so that kind of impact, you know, by the way, I mean, as far as touches go, Randall had 44 touches for his 6 dimes. Terrence Shannon had 24 for his 5 dimes. Neither one close to 30% of the touches that that were. It's just he doesn't need the ball. If he tries to ambush somebody on an inbounds, he doesn't get caught up the floor because of it. His gambles are not really gambles most of the time. They are born of anticipation and recovery hustle. He plays physically. As Ant pointed out, his gap defense, which was so important. This team could not get set the entire first quarter. And for long stretches of the game where it looked like Portland was dominating, it was because they were pushing hard in transition. He was one of the few people who was getting back and getting back in a way that he wasn't a spectator. He wound up being in a place that he could be disruptive. And all of that is, you know, he's making $2 million. And I think this is a 1-year deal or something. It's phenomenal. And
restricted free agent too afterwards. So well, that's big. It's big. That means they can retain him, you know, whatever his market value is. Restricted free agent, that's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing. It's what we all thought Jalen Clark would do, which I don't say to diminish it, because it was incredible. I even thought his defense put pace into the offense. You know, I mean, it's wise to bring up the offensive stuff, because a lot of times with that archetype of player, you're sacrificing significantly on the opposite side of the floor. And with Jalen, not because he wasn't an option to bring the ball up the floor. That's not what you want him to do. You don't want him to create off the dribble, any of that sort of stuff, but he does not appear to hurt the offense. And he did not do that
even when he's missing shots, as he did last night. He missed, 3 or 4 wide open shots, 2 of them from 3. I still, quite frankly, I never bought last year's percentage. I think he will be mid-30s tops as a 3-point shooter, but given his defense, I'll take that. And if it's more power to him.
I'm buying it a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not like, what did you shoot, like 43 last year? I'm not saying that. I think I watched the shot mechanics, and it's faster. He's figured out what it needs to look like. And then he also is extremely confident. He's not thinking when he's shooting. And I'm not saying that just from games. Like I watch him shoot, and he looks like a confident shooter. And for this type of player, right, the Okogie,
right,
it's different. It's different. I've seen this type of player around the league. I've seen plenty of Garrett Culvers and stuff on the Wolves.
Right.
And the body language, the consistency of mechanics, it is different. And to the point where I don't think we're going to have a Kyle Anderson situation at any point. He's not going to be like a knockdown guy all the time, but I would bet against it presenting to be a problem, even if not expecting it to be 43% or whatever it was again next season or this season. The non-Rudy minutes, that's my number one. I think was more concerning to me than the point guard stuff, because we talked about the point guard stuff, and yes, I hear the Thunder thing, I hear the Houston thing. It's going to be relevant in some matchups, and it's going to be relevant in the playoffs. I think this non-Rudy defense has a chance to be relevant in a bad way every game. I thought it was extremely disappointing, disjointed, and frankly, just mirroring the trend of a season ago. The defense a season ago with Rudy on the floor was 108.6, which is just slightly worse than Oklahoma City's number one defense was a season ago, right between Oklahoma City and Orlando last season. That's how good they were when Rudy was on the floor. And then when Rudy was off the floor last season, defensive rating 116.3, which is what Dallas's defensive rating was last season. They were 20th in defensive rating. Huge gap between Rudy on, Rudy off, which was not the case 2 seasons ago,
right,
when Rudy was off the floor and they would go with Cat and Kyle Anderson at the 5 and the 4. Last night, I know it's just one game and you don't want to make too much out of offense and defensive ratings of one game, especially split up to on-off stuff. But it was the same thing. Rudy on 105.7, which is elite. Rudy off the floor 121.2, which would have been worse than New Orleans last season, who was the worst defense in the league. One game, but long-standing trend now with this team. And then you watch the film, right, and it looked like a disaster defensively. I thought
my caveat to that would be that Rudy and the rest were horrible in that first quarter.
Rudy and the refs, or
Rudy and the rest of the team.
Okay.
In other words, the entire team. Where Rudy made that gap happen was in the fourth quarter with that group. They played great defense one quarter last night, and that was the fourth quarter. And Rudy was on the floor for almost all of it, but so were Randall and McDaniels. And those three played really good defense that entire fourth quarter. And that was the difference. That's why suddenly the Wolves had enough to enable Ant to be the hero, is because they were able to get stops. When they were bringing Klingon out onto the circle 3-point line and Rudy was going out there with him, they were getting toasted. And even worse than that, those straight drives from Avdia and Kamara and anybody else who brought the ball up and just sped. Rudy and the rest of the team were not set for most of that first quarter. I mean, I looked up Rudy played most of.
Rudy only played 4 minutes. He picked up the 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the first quarter. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
The point I'm making is, I agree. You'd be foolish to argue that the Wolves are better or close to the same on defense when Rudy is off compared to when Rudy is on. But I also think that the team in general needs to toughen up in its transition defense, or whatever you want to call getting back and getting set,
guarding a guy. Who are you guarding? How many did you pick up on that on TV of which I've seen this team do that too, of like, I mean, so my opinion before what you just said would have been different. And I'm trying to think of why it was different. And I think it's because I thought it was so ridiculous what the defense looked like when Rudy was off the floor, that when he came back on, it looked competent again. And then I was giving competence in that context felt great.
And
you know what I'm saying?
That's fair. Yeah. And I think McDaniels' foul trouble, was a factor. I think that, let's face it, none of the perimeter guys, with the possible exception of Ant. Well, I mean, TJ Shannon and Clark, when they brought in the people, but I guess what I'm saying is DiVincenzo had a bad night at both sides of the court. Conley had a bad night on both sides of the court. There wasn't. Nas had a really bad night on defense, I thought. TJ, his first rotation was getting blown by too. And one of the things we know about Rudy is if his teammates are falling apart, he's not going to look good because he's going to try to rescue everybody and hold his own position. He's not going to say, well, not my job, you know. But I do think that of all people, I mean, Bones Highland, the time he was out there, and Ant and Randall and McDaniels and Rudy was the quintet that's, you know, and I happen to think that Portland's, the amount of energy they expended and the youth of that team, plus for all I'm a huge Drew Holiday fan, love the guy and knew he wasn't washed, but his shot selection, oh my God, how many times would they have gotten a good possession and important 2 points and he came down with a lot left on the clock and just bricked one just for the hell of it?
Yeah, well, they lack options.
Yeah. But, well, he should not be one of them in those circumstances.
Yeah. I want to talk about Jaden a little bit because he's part of the answer for everything related to the defense, right?
Yep.
When Kyle and I talked about it last night, I was like, well, I don't think Jaden's presence out there always in the non-Rudy minutes, or even if it's Jaden and Jalen both out there in the non-Rudy minutes, I don't think just because they're the second and third best defender on the team, I don't think that solves it because you're still missing that backbone presence at the rim. But obviously, Jaden helps in a major way and potentially can help in some more rim protection stuff if he is out there with Jalen, and Jalen's at the point of attack. Now Jaden's off ball, swallowing people up at the rim. Like I do see that. That's going to be part of that answer there. Is sort of my way of just jamming a McDaniels piece in to this, given that we know he's an important part of the defense, but he's evolving as part of the offense too. And that's just going to be an interesting thing to track of. And it's a major win that the offense looks way, way better. And I want to talk about that. I'm curious to see what cost that has against his defensive impact over the course of the season, if any. Maybe not. Maybe he can do both.
What I thought was really fascinating was I think Sharp is their most dangerous offensive player.
And that's who he guarded.
That's who he guarded him more than anybody on the floor, but it was a very close. There was a 4-player gang there. If you know, some of it is they have the ISO minutes and then the general minutes. But in Clark, Shannon, and Ant all had a decent amount of time on Sharp. McDaniels still the most, and he might have even had more if he hadn't gotten in foul trouble. But Sharp shot 5 of 20 last night. He had 15 points on 20 shots, and that was huge.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that this team does have, once Shannon especially figured it out, I think Shannon got stuck in a preseason rhythm where he just thought, I dominated when I play like this, and he got steamrolled in his first. And I think he upped his intensity and his speed, and really started to compete after that. But Clark, Shannon, and Ant combined with McDaniels, if you're holding Sharp to 15 points on 20 shots, Portland's chances of winning go way down. And Jaden was key to that. Jaden was also key to he's working really well with Randall now in terms of how they play make. They're almost always on the same side. It's a strong side. They don't do much skip casting at all. There's not a lot of space over there. But Randall draws a crowd and kicks it out to Jaden, and then Jaden either shoots or drives into another crowd and does something. But it's working. Jaden McDaniels was 3 or 4 from 3-point range last night. I mean, you kidding me?
Randall and Jaden, we talked to both of them as part of the people we talked to in the media talked to the media after the game, and both of them talked about playing with each other and how that's
good.
Like kind of unprompted of how that's becoming more natural. And
that's fantastic. That is fantastic news because I think, first of all, Finch loves both of them, which means they're going to get a lot of time together, you know? True. And so if they can really maximize their interactions, especially on offense, and they can get used to what each other does, because Randall will pay off a lot more than Rudy. McDaniels is one of the few players that looks for Rudy on a fairly regular basis. And if he can look for Randall that way, Randall will be helped. I mean, who really is elevating Randall's game with good feeds? You know, I mean, this is not a great passing team, and McDaniels is kind of sneaky that way. He could get, Randall off. That would be fantastic.
I did talk about this this piece with Kyle after the game, but I want to talk about it with you just for listeners. Sure. I went into this last night as well, but I was thinking about it more after the game too. And my favorite sequence of the game was a possession where Jaden McDaniels hit a three, and the subsequent possession went and got a semi-transition bucket, like kind of Giannis style on his own, right? Mm-hmm. And why I like the play so much, I think my favorite thing watching basketball is, particularly with the Timberwolves, was when I see a player or the group struggle with a schematic thing thrown against them, and in time finding the answer to that problem. Right. And for years, this,
the lurker. Right.
Teams would just leave Jaden, or they put Trae Young on him.
Right.
Or
they have a guy, whether it's a big man or a little man, whatever is most convenient.
Porzingis, remember that?
Right.
With Boston, they put Drew Holiday on Cat, and then they'd have Porzingis sit in the middle of the lane, and Jaden would be sitting wide open in the corner, and then kind of freak out because he was wide open. So I say that to mean Portland in the second quarter, I believe it was, put Donovan Clingan.
Yeah, you tweeted this, I think.
Yeah. I thought this was just excellent because Jaden recognized it immediately, and they got into action. He's the handler, so Clingan is the point of attack defender at this point at the top of the key, and Julius sets a screen for him. Like, obviously, Clingan is not going to fight over the top of that screen, and slither there. He's going to go under it, and Jaden instinctually, as he has plenty of space, one dribble in, confidently took and made a three right there. And then the subsequent possession, as it's a semi-transition sort of situation, Clingan's obviously under the basket, Portland's basket, for offense, and Jaden has a layup before Clingan is even like at half court. That's, you break that shit.
Right.
And I just think it's a major signal to me of growth, and it just like kind of scratches that itch in my brain too of like solving something that was a problem. And I asked Jaden about it after the game, and I liked his answer about it.
Clinging on you, is that like a good way to kind of punish that when they put a true center on you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just playing smart basketball. He be down the floor, and it makes it easier to get Ant and Ju open just by a simple screen if he down the floor. So I mean, I don't like when the big guard me, but it's kind of disrespectful, but it's all right.
Did you catch that line? It's kind of disrespectful. Hell yeah, good, Jaden. Yeah, it is. It is disrespectful, and I think it's potentially becoming a bad idea as the opponent.
I think he wanted to cover his face with he was going to smile and he was going to say, it was like a fuck you smile.
Yes.
And so, that was kind of fun. Everybody knows that the guy is perhaps a little bit too competitive. but I mean, in this case, if you could, if you can harness that and set it in the right direction, I wrote like a fanciful part of my season preview column was basically just dreaming about ways to get this guy's versatility more engaged. He has the possibility of being like a really, really the kind of two-way player that his $28 million will seem like a bargain, Not one of these guys that you say, oh, well, you've got Ant and then you've got Jaden McDaniels. He's never going to be the second guy mentioned, I don't think. But he's going to be one of those guys that you always mention third or fourth on a really, really good team. And you miss them tremendously when they're not there, like an Aaron Gordon type.
I like that. Yeah.
You know, and I think he's got a lot of talent. He's the idea of him dribbling, the idea of him passing, the idea of him shooting sometimes. All those things have been problems at various points in his development. But we've seen under the radar improvement on all of those things. And it's because he doesn't get a chance to flash it that much. And for, you know, like everybody, when Rudy and Randall were out and McDaniels and Nas were handling the front court, it wasn't a successful time for this team. But
last season, yeah,
it was a very successful time for Jaden McDaniels because you could see, and that's what, you know, I would not mind having McDaniels be more of a playmaker in that second unit and have there be the kind of thing where he gets a little bit more shine because he remains the kind of guy who sometimes still gets stuck in that catch and shoot role if he's in that starting lineup. And I thought he broke out of it well last night, and I hope that continues. But if it can't continue, wouldn't bother me if he got moved to the second unit because I think he'd be a monster.
Yeah, I think it's about situationally punishing, right? It's kind of like the Julius Randle thing too. It's not something you don't want to run your offense through Jaden McDaniels and have him be playing in isolation against a good defender all the time.
Right.
We're not saying that, but we're saying there's more here than him being the spot up guy in the corner or even the kind of trickle into the dunker spot sort of thing and get some of his rocking chairs going. There's more here. And if you find it at the right cadence, it could be potent or make this offense.
And it would also give him and the team confidence to get out and run in transition, which is something they desperately need. And Jaden can do, but he does it like everybody. If he hits a couple of shots and makes a steal, and was it him that made that bullet pass to Ant? Like it was like he was standing under the rim, caught the rebound, spun and threw the ball to Ant for a layup. You remember that play? It was a football pass. I think that was Jaden, wasn't it?
Could have been. I know. I'm picturing the Ant dunk. I can't picture who threw it.
Well, anyway, he's got these things that just suddenly pop out at you, and
he's good, man. He's just really good. He's just really good. And you bring up the money sort of thing. I think you said 28. I'm pretty sure it's less than. I think he's at like 23 or something like that this year, and maybe 25. And if you look around now at what these other players are signing for, like if you're a starting caliber player and you're a free agent this past summer or next summer signing an extension, like you're getting 20 kind of minimum.
I mean, Kamara's in that ballpark right now. He just signed something, I think, for more than
480. Yeah. And even that, like Kamara is nerdy salary stuff, but like he had a $2.4 million team option for next season. He gave that up to secure 4 years, $80 million, which means his actual value would be greater than that, right? So
exactly.
And I love Kamara, but like Jaden's better than Kamara, and right. So I think he's the guy for elite, of a whole different level of night to night. Just like his overall rating in a video game sort of thing of just better, like 8 more points or something like that. I really do think Jaden has that while still, I'm glad we talked about the Sharp thing too, because I forgot that Sharp had shot 5 of 20 and Jaden was guarding him a lot. If he can still bring the defense while giving you more of this offense, it's just a hell of a player. And it's exactly what this team needs. We're long here. We're well over an hour. Of course we are. Any final thing you wanna hit?
Yeah, I was right about Wemby and the Spurs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way too early to take a victory lap. But I said at Falling Knife Outside when people were looking for hot takes that the Spurs would finish 6th. They would avoid the play-in, and that Wemby be top 5 MVP. I didn't say it in the same sentence, but I said it at different times. And I think I mispronounced. Isn't it Wembanyama? Is that wrong? Okay.
Yeah. I was just giving you a hard time.
Okay,
You said it wrong at one point there.
Okay, I probably did. But anyway, if you haven't seen that dude play basketball, stop setting your watch for Steph Curry and LeBron James and Kevin Durant and just check out a Spurs game. And you'll see this dude like block shots that he has no business blocking, but you expect that from a guy that is that huge.
Yeah.
What you won't expect is that somebody will be dribbling down the lane and he will seem like he's on the sidelines and he will poke the ball, he will snatch that ball from you. He has as wide a width for steals as he has verticality for blocks. It is just phenomenal. I saw him in preseason, just like almost like being an 8th grader picking the pocket of 3rd grade dribblers, just, it was amazing. And then the other night he just did like an up and under over the head dunk.
Insane.
He's being guarded by Anthony Davis and Ben Lively, 2 of the best defenders in the NBA. And he got 40. He just wiped them out. And Castle
much
is
taller.
the goods and Harper is the goods. I don't know how good this coach is, but I will tell you, they are going to be a problem.
I'm jealous of you watching games last night. It's like I was there and I was like,
well, I was jealous of the fact that you actually got to record and see the interviews. I mean, we didn't get into that any, but you could monetize the shit out of that. I'll tell you right now. You're the only guy taking video in the room.
That was crazy.
Give A-Rod a ring and tell him that you got some video to sell him on a nightly basis.
Yeah, we'll figure out something with that. It also can't be my responsibility. But
absolutely.
This is awesome, man. I'm glad it was. Like I said at the beginning, it was very you know what it's like when you do those post game pods. It's a lot harder.
Oh yeah, it's a tough. It's you think that everything you're about to say is so obvious because you just saw it, and you assume almost everybody listening just saw it.
Yeah.
So you're saying to yourself in the back of your mind, say, "What am I doing here?"
Right.
Give me like 3 hours to think about it, and maybe I'll give you something beyond. Oh, did you see that? And this happened, and this happened. Everybody saw it happen. Yes, we saw it happen.
Well, it was about 3 hours ago that I finished recording it. So
yeah, there you go. Now you're getting on a plane for LA. So
I'm staying here tonight in Portland.
Oh, good.
Night, then I'm heading out to LA. But this was awesome. The next pod for you listeners will be me and Chris Hine again doing a post game pod from LA. You'll learn to live with our, I don't know, stream of consciousness, I guess there. Sure. But it's fun to do both. I do think it's fun to do both. I'm not sure I have my thoughts all put together right after the game, but I enjoyed doing it with Kyle last night and kind of really being able to dig through. I feel like everything from last night has now downloaded into my brain. Like the wheel was sort of spinning.
It's the cool thing about your system is you talk to somebody different who is totally immersed in your subject every 4 times a week or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And that just the variety and the variety of perspectives, the variety of personalities, how they look and approach the game, can't help but be enriching. And I think it shows in the way you govern and organize these things.
No, I appreciate that. It helps me too. It's
absolutely
everybody. I learn stuff from all you guys, or I'm not, there might be something that I'm aligned on with you that Jason and I aren't, or whatever, Kyle or whatever, right. Chris, whatever it might be. Anyways, I'm looking forward to doing another season of this and figuring this team out as it goes with you and the rest of everybody. Like I said, it'll be Chris and I after the Lakers game on Friday night. But until then, he's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.